All right, this is a banger, folks. We actually clipped a segment of this speech and put it on Twitter, which last I checked was approaching 300,000 views. So we will give credit to ourselves here for making this clip kind of viral, this speech kind of viral. But this is the Grayzone's Max Blumenthal addressing the United Nations Security Council last week on the U.S. role in the Ukraine war. Here's a few minutes. We'll let this play pretty much uninterrupted because it is deserving of that honor. Here's Mr. Blumenthal at the United Nations.
Why are we doing this? Why are we tempting nuclear annihilation by flooding Ukraine with advanced weapons and sabotaging negotiations at every turn? We've been told by people like Senator Dick Durbin that Ukraine is literally in a battle for freedom and democracy itself. And therefore, anyone who opposes military aid to Ukraine opposes the very defense of democracy, according to this logic. So where's the democracy in Vladimir Zelensky's decision to ban opposition parties, to criminalize the media outlets of his legitimate political opponents, to jail his top political rival and his deputies, to raid Orthodox churches and jail clergymen? Where is the democracy in the Ukrainian government's imprisonment of Gonzalo Lira, an American citizen, simply for challenging the official narrative of Ukraine's war? And where is the democracy in Zelensky's recent decision to suspend elections in 2024 on the grounds that martial law has been declared? The answer is that Ukrainian democracy is harder to find these days than that country's commander-in-chief, Valery Zaluzhny. Senator Lindsey Graham has offered a much more grim and more on-the-mark rationale for supplying Ukraine with billions in weapons. As the senator boasted during a recent visit with Zelensky in Kiev, the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. I repeat, the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. And Graham has also said that Americans are ready to fight this war down to the last Ukrainian. While official casualty numbers are strictly classified, we must worry that Ukraine is well on its way to fulfilling the senator's ghoulish fantasies. As a Ukrainian soldier complained this month to Vice News, we don't know what Zelensky's plans are, but, quote, it looks like the extermination of its own population, like of the combat-ready and working-age population. That's it. Indeed, military cemeteries in Ukraine are expanding almost as rapidly as the Northern Virginia McMansions and beachfront estates of executives from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and assorted Beltway contractors benefiting from the second highest level of military spending since World War II. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war, not average Ukrainians or Americans or Russians. The winners, or Europeans for that matter, the winners are people like Secretary of State Tony Blinken, who spent his time between the Obama and Biden administrations launching a consulting firm called West Exec Advisors, which secured lucrative government contracts for intelligence firms and the arms industry. Blinken's former partners at West Exec include Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines, CIA Deputy Director David Cohen, former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and almost a dozen current and former members of Biden's national security team. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, for his part, is a former and possibly future board member of Raytheon, and an ex-partner of Pine Island Capital Investment, which collaborates with West Exec and which Blinken himself has advised. Meanwhile, the current U.S. ambassador to this body, the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, is listed as a senior counsel at the Albright Stonebridge Group, a self-described commercial diplomacy firm that also finesses government contracts for the intelligence and arms sector, and which was founded by Madeleine Albright, infamously known for her comments that the deaths by sanctions of 500,000 Iraqi children were worth it. So while military-age Ukrainian men are ripped off the streets by military police and sent to the front lines, the financially and politically connected architects of this proxy war are planning to walk through the revolving door to reap unimaginable profits once their time in the Biden administration is over. For them, a negotiated settlement to this territorial dispute means an end to the cash cow of close to $150 billion in U.S. aid to Ukraine.
Ooh, hot. Keyboard was hot. Oh, I shouldn't have touched it. Hot, hot, hot. Whoa. Whoa. I'm like Randy Jackson, right? When there was a Great American Idol performance. Yo, bro. I'm like, whoa, yo. That's what I mean. God damn. We don't usually play clips like that uninterrupted. We usually like to run our big mouths while we're playing them, but I thought that warranted an uninterrupted stream. Just absolutely masterfully done. There's so much to touch on there that we've kind of touched on throughout our commentary since the Ukraine war started. First, getting back to what we talked a little bit about in our Rumble stream with Pasta, someone asked about Zelensky and Putin and things like that. And I said, what a disaster Zelensky has been for his country, for his people, subjecting them to this slaughter, to this onslaught. He touched upon that in this piece here. The whole speech is about 13 minutes. You can watch it on the Grayzone's YouTube channel, and it's all over Twitter in its entirety as well. The second thing I want to just point to when it comes to this speech is something that we've talked a lot about regarding the Ukraine war, which is the Jake Sullivan problem, right? How we really have Jake Sullivan may as well be leading the country right now. He may as well be president, right? He may as well be calling the shots, right? Jake Sullivan is an advisor to Biden. It's all these nameless, faceless people. Some of them are not so nameless and not so faceless because they are prominent. But one of the things that Max actually cited in the written version of that speech, which is posted on their website, is an article in the American Prospect, which actually talked a lot about West Exec, which is this sort of consulting firm that arose during the Trump years. It's very, very young. It's only been around since 2017. This was co-written by Ryan Grimm, actually, and I'll read a little piece of this article. The firm, West Exec, describes one of its chief selling points as its unparalleled geopolitical risk analysis, now confirmed by the saturation of its employees in positions of power. West Exec has also succeeded in getting tech startups into defense contracts and helped defense corporations modernize with tech. It worked to help multinational companies break into China. One of its collaborators is the defense-centered investment group Pine Island Capital Partners, which launched SPAC, or Blank Check Company, last year. Tony Blinken advised Pine Island and was a part owner. Michelle Flournoy, another West Exec co-founder, had her nomination to be Secretary of Defense nixed. President Joe Biden instead nominated Lloyd Austin, himself a former Pine Island partner, but not a West Exec consultant. This was written before the war once again. That article was written in July of 2021, and they included this graphic here, which is just a who's who of figures who have ties to this sort of new defense-aligned firm. Tony Blinken, 2017 to 2020, the co-founder and managing partner. Avril Haines, who is currently Biden's director of national intelligence. David S. Cohen, from 2018 to 2020, now deputy director of the CIA. Lisa Monaco, 2018 to 2020, now deputy AG. Chris Inglis, national cyber director, involved with West Tech 2018 to 2021. Look at that, Jen Psaki, senior advisor to the West Exec firm.
Quite a
Obviously,
trajectory.
Quite the trajectory. This is the revolving door. This is what we mean when we talk about the Jake Sullivans, right? I mean, these are the exact people who, as he illustrates in that speech, have every incentive in the world to keep the thing going. I mean, we talk a lot about this show with Pasta. We were talking on the last show. He seems to be more conspiratorial in his theories that there is another layer to this, and he may very, very well be right about that. But what my point is, and I think what Russell's point is too, is that you see the conspiracy right here. It's right in front of you. It's on the chart. Right. These people do not have to gather behind closed doors to formulate a plan. They all know their role in the thing. The old Carlin quote I mentioned a million times: you do not need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. You have all of these people. They were at the same firm. They're in different roles now. They coordinate out in the open to the extent that they coordinate at all. They do not need to call a meeting. They know what to do. And so obviously an A+ for Max Blumenthal on that absolutely epic speech, because not only did it make the obvious point of, hey, why are we stoking a potential World War III, a potential nuclear war, but it really got into a lot of the sort of underlying substance of the war that we don't really get to talk about much.
Yeah. When you look at how out in the open and how brazen these people are in terms of, conspiracies, Yeah, it's not that there might not be some of that, but it's really not necessary to explain it any more than it would have been necessary. That's like sitting in Louis XIV's France and saying, well, look at how all these aristocrats get together at the palace. They must be up to something. Yes, they're together at the palace. That's what they're up to.
Right. Exactly.
That's literally what they're up to. It's
Right.
not a secret. It's right out in the open. It's an oppressive state. They're not making a secret of it. And when you look, particularly when you look at Psaki, that's the whole game, right? I mean, she went from working for West Exec to working for the White House to working for MSNBC. It's all one big, happy, elite family with common interests. I mean, if there's any secret, it may be the way that they speak about voters and people behind closed doors, but they kind of do that out in the open too. They just call them MAGA and, just right wingers, anyone who disagrees with them. So, they shit on people anyway. Maybe they make it more clear that they have disdain even for the people who buy that shit when no one is listening. But beyond that, I don't see what they would be doing behind closed doors that they're not doing in front of the doors.
I mean, what else do you need to see? This should say it all. This here with that speech.
Davos, right? The Aspen Institute,
right.
Like a lot of people will bring that up as evidence of a conspiracy. And my answer is yes.
That is the conspiracy.
It's not a hidden one.
That is a conspiracy. They take the private jets there. They pose for photos there. They get up on stage and say it. Yeah.
And we have a complicit media. When you look at how corrupted these institutions have become, this is what happens when you don't, the founders believed that they weren't done. They believed you needed periodic revolutions because they saw that over time the institutions will become corrupted by the powerful, right? So every now and then you need to have a new revolution. You need to overthrow this system. It is too far gone. We have said it before on the show for regular order democracy. Now, I'm not saying, to hurt anybody or commit acts of violence, but mass civil disobedience. Yeah. I mean, that's what's left to us.